What was once a mighty river carving its way from the snow-capped peaks of Colorado through the Grand Canyon and down to the Gulf of California has now been reduced to a faint trickle that rarely reaches the sea. The Colorado River, lifeblood of the American Southwest, is at a breaking point. Experts warn that the basin's decline threatens water security for tens of millions of people. Cities like Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Denver all depend on it. But it's not just people at risk. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. Endangered fish species, wetlands, and wildlife that have thrived for centuries are now hanging by a thread. The river's two great reservoirs, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, are at historically low levels, victims of a prolonged megadrought and rising global temperatures. If water levels continue to fall, hydropower generation at the Hoover Dam and Glen Canyon Dam could grind to a halt, cutting off clean energy and threatening recreation and tourism. Nearly 40 million people across 7 U.S. states rely on this river, and under a century-old agreement, the U.S. must also deliver water to Mexico. About half of the river's flow sustains millions of acres of farmland, while around 18% supports homes, cities, and industries. But that balance has sparked fierce conflict between the upper basin states, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and New Mexico, and the lower basin states, California, Arizona, and Nevada. At the heart of the dispute are complicated water rights. Some of the oldest, known as first in time, first in right, grant senior access to those who claim the water earliest, often large agricultural users. California, holding the most senior rights in the lower basin, has long resisted calls for major cuts. Meanwhile, upper basin states argue that the lower basin needs to reduce agricultural consumption to save the system. But telling senior water rights holders to stop irrigating crops is easier said than done. Part of this crisis stems from a century-old mistake. The 1922 Colorado River Compact, which governs how water is divided, drastically overestimated how much water the river could provide. On paper there was plenty to go around. In reality, climate change and decades of overuse have left far less to share. Today, roughly half of all water from the Colorado River goes to growing cattle feed crops like alfalfa and hay, thirsty fields that consume vast amounts of water in one of the driest regions of North America. Negotiations between the 7 states continue as current water-sharing rules expire in 2026. The decisions made in the next year could determine whether the Colorado River, once a symbol of American growth and prosperity, can survive the century ahead, or fade into history as a warning of what happens when we take nature's generosity for granted.